At the age of 18, I decided to postpone going to college to instead be a rotary exchange student in Meaux, France. Being an exchange student meant moving to a completely new country and living with a family I'd never met before. So while all my friends were trying to decide what they were going to major in or who their future roommate was, I was trying to figure out how many euros equaled a dollar, how many suitcases I needed for a year's worth of clothing, and whether or not they sell tampons and deodorant in France. They do, by the way, and I was being ridiculous. It's been almost a decade since that experience, and I have lived abroad in 4 countries: Tanzania, South Korea, and France. Real talk, travel can be lit. But before I could really embrace all that it had to offer, I had to learn to stop, drop, and roll. Travel taught me to stop working to meet expectations and to define my own success. Before leaving for France, I was told I was crazy multiple times. "You're crazy," they told me. "You don't even speak French. Traveling alone isn't safe." Before, I had allowed negative phrases to define what I could and could not do, but not this time. So when August rolled around, I had my bags packed with more than just tampons and deodorant. And I hopped on a plane from Minnesota to Paris, France, to spend my first year abroad. I was a young female traveling alone. When I arrived in France, there were some immediate struggles. And I mean immediate. My suitcases didn't arrive. Literally all the clothes I owned did not arrive in France. So when I went to meet my host family at the airport, my first phrase was, "Bonjour, enchanté, hello, it's nice to meet you. Excuse me, where can I buy some underwear?" Oh, not a phrase they teach you in French class 101. But my host family had not been expecting that question. They had not been expecting to receive an American with nothing but a math league t-shirt and a pair of jeans. But putting expectations aside and defining my own success, and let me clarify, success for that day was having a second pair of underwear, I was able to step out of my comfort zone and the cultural norms to get some new clothing. When immersed in a completely new surrounding, even the smallest tasks can be very challenging. Asking for directions or making a simple joke can feel like a small victory. To this day, I still remember my first French joke. It was about fishing. I mean, I am from Minnesota. I used the material I knew. When I made my joke, my host father at first was a little confused, but then his face changed because he understood. He understood my joke, and more importantly, he understood that I could make jokes. He later learned that my jokes were not always the best, which had nothing to do with the language barrier and everything to do with my sense of humor. In fact, here at Nova, we probably would have called my fish joke a fantastic moment. But I digress. Through that joke, I was able to express myself, a gesture that meant the world to me. So by stopping to meet expectations and reevaluating what it meant to speak French, I was defining my own success, and success for that day was my first joke. Next, I had to learn to drop my boundaries and learn from my surroundings. So as I stated, I'm from the Midwest, a place where people are often built for farm work. As you can see, I'm not the smallest person around. So when I moved to South Korea in 2012 to teach English, and the average height of a Korean woman was 5 foot 2 inches, it was safe to say I stood out a little bit. Even in this photo with my friend Minhee, who is one of my taller friends, she is still close to a foot shorter than I am. One day I was talking to Minhee, and I was complaining about how people used to bump into my shoulders and bump into my knees, and no one ever apologized. And Minhee's mom overheard us, and she walked in and stated, "Katie, There are 50 million people in Korea. If I stopped and apologized to everyone I bumped into, I would never arrive anywhere. Boom. Let's talk about something I had never considered before. I was confusing people when I apologized for bumping into them, and setting myself up for failure when I expected an apology. Let me give you another example. While working in Tanzania, I worked with these 3 lovely ladies. During our lunch breaks, we'd often discuss our lives. They wanted to learn about my life in the US, and I wanted to learn about their life in Tanzania. Time was a constant conversation topic. I cannot tell you how many hours, days, maybe even months I spent waiting in Tanzania. You see, because time is fluid. I could show up to an event an hour late and still be 45 minutes early. But through our conversations and willingness to be inquisitive, I learned to ask and answer questions in the hope of learning from the response. Far too often, we seek answers to prove ourselves right. You see, before traveling, I thought that I could either be early or late. But in Tanzania, I could be early and late. So by dropping my boundaries and being willing to engage in conversation, I was learning from my surroundings. Finally, I'm going to tell you how I've been able to roll my interest, passion, and desire to change the world into a future career. I work in the International Affairs Office. I work with students who want to be globally aware. My students come from a variety of backgrounds and travel experiences. Travel is a privilege. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes effort. So I do not expect my students to immediately run off to Korea to let fish clean their feet or sell oysters in the south of France. I'll be honest, I don't even know if Hogwarts takes financial aid. But I do expect my students to travel locally and to be globally aware. My call to action for you all here today is to start thinking globally. Try an international restaurant. Watch a movie in your non-native language. Support the international communities around you by attending events. Start saving for a trip. And when you get the chance to travel, say yes. And say yes with the attitude that your experience may surprise you. A friend of mine once told me that we fear awkwardness when it comes to diversity and inclusion, but we can learn and teach in that awkwardness. I continue to have plenty of awkward moments, including the time I took my shoes off in the wrong place in Thailand, and they got stuck underneath an elephant. But I challenge you to learn cross-culturally, because while all roads may not lead to the airport, all good roads encourage people to think globally. Thank you.